I'm getting some interference. Again, I am asking us to go ahead. Please do mute your microphone for the rest of the Bible study session. Failing that, we will have to do it on our end. And so the microphones will not be open until question and answer time. So we're just asking you to help us to manage the meeting by giving attention to your audio and to your background. So again, we are going to be looking at a healthy lifestyle throughout the month of July. And so all our presentations over the course of this time, they will be looking at a healthy lifestyle. And we have a really, really exciting lineup of presenters for you. So we are going to be talking to real people who have had varying challenges in terms of health, or would have been able to overcome a particular diagnosis, or maybe an expert in a particular health field. So we are going to be talking with the experts over the course of the month. So we are inviting you to just make sure that you do join us, do share the link for the presentations as we take this journey together. Now, this evening, we have a very special set of presenters. We have an external guest and an internal guest. What do I mean by that? By that, I mean that one of our presenters is a guest, a visitor, so to speak, to our study here at Miracle. And our internal person is one of our very own. And so we would have known that, you know, our church is blessed with varying people and experts serve in different okay, I get some interference. I'm just moving to mute some of the microphones. Okay, so experiencing a bit of interference there, but I think we have resolved those microphone issues. I was getting a bit of a feedback. But just to continue, we do have, and if someone could, all right, I have an indication that I'm being heard. All right, so we have with us this evening, Ms. Tanya Powell. And just in case you hear me pausing, I'm getting a bit of a feedback. So just give me a minute to check what may be the problem. I think I'm getting a feedback. And it may be this, okay. All right, thank you for bearing with us. So we know that while we are online, we do have one or two technical challenges, right? And we have to overcome one or two of them to make sure that our meetings go on smoothly. So I've dealt with that little audio issue. Was getting a little bit of an echo, but we should be proceeding nicely. So I mentioned that we have an external person with us and an internal person. So we have quite a cadre of experts inside our own assembly. And so we're fusing tonight. All right, it's a dynamic team of one of our very own and an external expert who is going to be sharing with us tonight. And so I want to just take this time to introduce to us the presenter who is going to share an interesting journey with us. And you know, when I read the overview and the background of this particular expert and the presenter who will just guide us into the rest of the proceedings, I was really, really blessed. And so I am hoping that tonight, as we share together, you too will be blessed by this story. You too will be able to find strength and hope. And of course, if you are, you know, looking for an example of someone who has overcome a particular struggle, a particular situation, I am sure that this expert is going to give you that assurance that you too can do it. And so I'm speaking of Ms. Tanya D. Powell. Now, Ms. Powell is an executive and personal development coach with certifications from John Maxwell Leadership, the CAP Institute, and a former business coach with Action Coach. Now, when I read this background and I heard John Maxwell Leadership and the CAP Institute, I was like, wow, we definitely have a presenter who is more than well able to do what she is doing, because of course, those two certifications, those two institutions are prestigious in the area of coaching and personal development. And so Tanya spent over 20 years in the financial sector, culminating in senior leadership positions in multi-billion-dollar companies. And despite a global pandemic and a cancer diagnosis in 2020, yes, I did say a cancer diagnosis, Tanya has emerged as a cancer thriver, having founded the iShift Institute for Transformation. And so that tells us that we can use our story to thrive and to rise. And Tanya works with individuals to create a mindset shift, moving them from where they are today to where they truly need to be. Given a new outlook on life, Tanya believes that one should seek to thrive even through adversities by focusing on breakthrough. And so without further ado, I am going to move out of the way so that we can have our expert presenter take us through the rest of the evening. And so I present to us this evening Ms. Tanya Powell, and she is going to be leading us through the rest of the presentation. Ms. Powell, do I have an indication that you are with us? Again, we are asking you to help us to get through the session by monitoring your audio. Okay, and if you're not able to do that, what we will now move to do is we're going to mute the microphones. And so at the end of the presentation, the microphones will be made open so that you could ask questions. So we have muted all participants, and we will keep that mode for the rest of the evening. I'm going to just allow Ms. Powell to take the floor at this time, and she will be walking us through the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud
Awesome.
and clear.
And I hope you're seeing me also. I don't know about the rest of the evening. Aleathia said a few minutes. But it really is, it is a pleasure and an honor to be here and to share, just a little bit of my journey with you. Uh, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put mine back. Did I just change everybody or just mine? Back to gallery view.
Well, you are on spotlight for everyone.
For everyone. Okay, all right.
So
Because
everyone
when
get
you put me on speaker view and I'm staring at myself as I'm speaking, I'm like, oh no. But awesome. Yeah, let's get going it. So
okay.
thank you all so much for having me. As you heard, my name is Tanya Powell, and just to jump to it, yes, I am a cancer thriver. I did not use the word survivor, because I truly do not believe that I was put on this earth to struggle and to just barely survive, but that I was put here to have an abundant life. And so, even in my darkest hour, I decided that I was going to thrive. So, let me walk it back a little bit so I can give you, just a snippet of the journey and why I have been sharing this journey. And I share my story, and I've been sharing it from day one, in hopes that, one of my mentors have said to me that your story is about you, but it's not for you. And so as I share my story, the hope is that I can give hope to someone, I can inspire someone, I can teach someone something to make their life, their journey just a little bit better. And so one of the things that I've come to learn is that, I literally, before I came here, got off another speaking engagement, and their topic was challenges, known, unknown, out of left field. And I said to them, the moment I saw that, I said, but that's life. You see, we know that there are certain laws that govern the universe, one being the law of rhythm. As sure as the tide goes out, it will come back in. As sure as the sun will set, it will rise. As sure as we have moments of celebration, we'll have moments of pain. And so I always ask myself, and now I ask, when I speak to my audiences, I ask them to ask themselves this question, and I ask these questions of my clients. What if What if we could recognize then that life is not happening to us, but for us and through us? What if we could recognize that since there is the law of rhythm, we can actually flow with life, and that instead of surviving, knocking ourselves against life, we can find that way to thrive. In 2018, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. And given the intricacies of her situation, after we met with the amazing doctors here, the surgeons here, they told us that she would most likely wear a colostomy bag for the rest of her life. And whilst we were grateful, absolutely grateful that that meant life, we knew that she wanted a little bit more, to be able to enjoy her life a little bit more than that. And so we went in search of a specialist, and we found one in Los Angeles. Now, what that meant was that she had to go overseas to do her surgery. And so in December of 2018, I quit my job and headed overseas with her. She did her first surgery in January. Now, the plan was for us to come back home, and she completes her treatment, and, go back up, do her second surgery, come back. But it didn't work out that way. And so we had to spend the entire January to July. We came back home July 31st, 2019, and she's doing well. So, you know, we're back home, she's doing well. I just spent, you know, the last 7 months being her caregiver. And a few weeks after my birthday, which was in September, I'm sitting across from my doctor, and he says, Tanya, you have breast cancer. What? And my first reaction to him was, well, we're not going to worry about that, because my journey with mom, and this is the thing that I've really come to learn, that on the other side of every adversity, there's a blessing waiting for you. And I said to him, we're not going to worry, because as I had spent my time with her, we had actually created what we call a recipe for thriving through adversity. I don't know if I'll have time to go into that, but, you know, I'll give you a snippet of that. And so, as you can imagine, then last year, in addition to this global pandemic that we're all going through, I'm also going through this thing. So it's chemo and radiation and surgery and, you know, just everything happening. And one of the things I say no, but I say it as I'm even laughing, that if my hair looks a little unkept on camera, the thing about it is that last year, this time, I had absolutely none. You know, when you're on Facebook and Facebook remind you of, you know, this happened last year, this time, and it brings up that photo of you. Yesterday, photo came up of me, no hair. So, you know, I'm just enjoying this hair growth that has come back. But what is it? Why do I share my story? And what is it that I want to share with you, really? We never ever want these things to happen, but it's a part of life. And so when my oncologist sat with me, he said, your strain of breast cancer is HER2 positive and some things. Now, the interesting thing about that is that this strain of cancer impacts Black women more than anyone else. And so it is also the most prevalent strain in Jamaica. He looked at me and he said, it's aggressive, but we have 2 drugs that can give you the best shot at cure. I'm sharing this because I want to talk about support. And I break down support from a spiritual place, from your environment, and from financial. And whilst it is that I know you're talking about a healthy lifestyle, through my story, what I was asked to touch on is just talk a little bit around the financial support. So he sat with me and he said, we have 2 drugs that can really give you the best shot at cure. One is called Herceptin. And the Herceptin, the cost of the Herceptin, so I'm not talking about what I call your regular chemo, which would range anywhere between $75,000 to $150,000 every 3 weeks, depending on which pharmacy. I'm not talking about the X-rays and the bone scans and the MRIs, and all I'm talking about now are just 2 drugs. Herceptin. And he said the Herceptin is $320,000 per dose. And we're going to need about 18 doses. So immediately, I wasn't math brain, but immediately I'm trying to do some rough calculations. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's about $5 million. How many of us have $5 million sitting down? And then he said the second one is called Perjeta. And Perjeta is $659,000 per dose. And again, we want to try and do 18 doses. You know, I wanted to say to my doctor, do I look like an ATM machine? We're talking roughly what? $20 million for 2 drugs? But here's what I also found happening. So remember I told you that we created this recipe for thriving. So every morning, my mom and I would get up and we would start our day with prayer and devotion. Now, I know my audience who I'm talking to, so I know that you know that that's how you start your days too, right? Power, prayer, meditation. And then we got into what I call an attitude of gratitude. Not just thanksgiving for being awake or for what we had, but a deep generative gratitude for even what we knew was on the way. And what we knew on the way and what we were calling in was perfect health. One of the quotes that one of the Bible verses, and I forgive me if I don't say it exactly how it is in the Bible, but this is one of the things that kept me going. For I'm fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and I know that God has perfect health, so I must have perfect health. But I also knew that whilst I'm getting more and more connected and more believing, also knew that I had to be taking action. So when I thought about all these costs, I suddenly remembered, there's a thing that you have called insurance. And there is a particular one that I want to share today, because this has become a part of what I share with people. Because one of the things I've come to recognize and realize that I didn't even know, that there are persons who are of the belief that if I take out insurance, if I take out critical illness, it means that I am going to get sick. No, it does not mean that. And no, we do not want to get sick. But I ask the question, what if you do and you didn't take it out? Because in that moment when these costs were being quoted to me, thankfully, and I can't tell you that I was the best insurance client there is, because sometimes you're paying your insurance, and then when things get tough and times get hard, we make the policy lapse and all those things. So I can't tell you that I was the best. In fact, that happened to me. But thankfully, and I'm gonna call thankfully at Sagicor I was able to go in, and this was before the diagnosis. I was able to go in and reinstate my policies, because I said, you know what, you just never know what will happen. That's one of the things going through with my mom showed me. And so I had critical illness coverage, not $20 million worth that I needed, but when you are in that moment, every little bit matters, every little bit helps. And so I was able to go into my insurance agent with my critical illness. And the beauty about the critical illness is that you go in, you give them your policies, they put the money in your account. They don't tell you how to spend it. They don't send it to a doctor. They don't send it to the hospital. It's in your account for you to use. Why am I sharing this? Too often, as I've now come to see, that there are too many of us who, for one reason or not, are not listening to our advisors. So I got into the UE clinic because with the Herceptin, if you qualify, the government subsidizes the cost of it. That's the $5 million one, right? Why they couldn't subsidize the bigger one? And so I ended up in UE clinic. Now, if you've ever gone to UE and gone into a clinic or at KPH, you know that on clinic days, there are a lot of people. And so a Friday was for, the hemo clinic. And as I started to look around, I recognized that for too many, it wasn't necessarily the disease that was causing the damage or killing, causing the death, but it was the inability to afford health care. And so, the main point I want to make to you tonight is, because I think Aleathia is going to come and give you some options, the main thing I want to talk, I just want to leave you with tonight is that a big part of the support, a big part of your recovery, a big part of you being able to thrive is having that financial support. And so I'll always say to persons, if you think paying $3,000 or whatever it is for insurance is expensive now, and we don't want anything to happen, if something were to happen, then that's expensive. And so the final thing I want to say, you know, somebody asked me once, what would you change if you could change anything, if you could go back and change anything? And I said to her, if I could go back, my first shift would have been mental. My first shift would be not to see my insurance as an expense, but to see my insurance as an investment in me. And so, you know, one of the things, and this is my final point, we have to ask ourselves the question, do I see myself as a gamble, or do I see myself as an investment, the best investment there is? And if I see myself as an investment over the long term, then I also know that there will be times where things are good and things are bad. There will be the ups and the downs. And if I see myself as a gamble, then when things are hard, then I start to cash out. And I don't get to go through the finish line. But if I think of myself as an investment, and I want to get to that finish line, and I know I want to ride out the storms, then I got to do everything possible to invest in me, especially in the down times. So I'm mindful of the time. So ladies and gentlemen, you know, my final bit is, so 3 things I say. Focus on the spirituality, but take inspired action. Do what you know that you need to do to support you, to help you, to invest in you, so that if anything were to happen, you're covered in more ways than one. So that, to tie this all back to what we're talking about in July, your health is your wealth. So if you have not, you know, if you need to take a look at your health now, because we could go into a whole nother story, which is probably for another time, you want to make sure that you're investing properly in your health. And for me, the biggest part of that is not even so much the food and the drinks at this point for me, because here's what I've come to recognize. That is the stress, the doubt, the fear, the anxiety, the anger, those negative emotions that find their way to create what one of my mentors called the dis-ease in the body that then leads to that disintegration. So a healthy lifestyle, and I'm sure you'll have someone who will speak, you know, an expert who will speak about it, but just from my little experience, we gotta harbor those high energy emotions, love, hope, faith, so that we can create. But my thing is, as I close, final close is, I think Aleathia is coming next. I want you to listen carefully to her. 2 years of no income. My bills did not stop. I had to draw on my savings, my investments, my insurance that came in. So if for a moment, so I want you to listen carefully. I want you to stop. I want you to assess yourself and do what you have to do. This is it that I'm sharing. I thank you so much for listening. I hope I was able to share one little nugget with at least one person. I am here for question and answers if you have any questions for me. Yeah. Thank you, Yannick.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Powell. Short, spicy, but a very, very inspiring and really, really thought provoking encounter life event that you have shared with us, and I'm sure there are questions. You mentioned, inspired action, the need to take inspired action, and of course to invest in our health. So we are going to ask that you jot down some of the questions that you will have for Ms. Powell. Will you be staying with us, Ms. Powell? Or do you prefer that we take your questions now?
I would prefer, because I actually have another session I'm going into.
Totally understood. All right, so we are going to ask you to, well, I'm going to give you two options to key in your questions for Ms. Powell. We're going to ask you to use the chat feature. So you just go ahead, type your question or your comments in the chat. And then if you're not able to access the chat or you prefer to just speak on the microphone, I'm going to ask you to use the raise hand feature for those who know where that is. So, we have different devices, so yours may be somewhere else, but it is usually at the bottom of the participants window. You usually will find three little dots. Click on that and it will allow you to use the raise hand feature. So you may go ahead and utilize that feature or the chat box, and we will take your questions or comments. If you were just joining us, we have been hearing from Ms. Tanya Powell, and she is a business and executive coach who, yes, she shared her cancer diagnosis in 2020, but amidst that, she has been able to thrive, calls herself a cancer thriver. And of course, that story, that message, Ms. Powell has shared with us this evening for us to take inspired action in the face of life events and health events such as a cancer diagnosis. And what I found most interesting, Ms. Powell, we have heard from presenters. When I say we, I mean, in the motivational or transformational message space, we've often heard about support in terms of having your family, your support in terms of your loved ones and so on. But the financial aspect, that's not something that we've heard too much about. And so we are really, really glad that we could draw from that perspective this evening. And so we are getting some of these comments here in the chat box. So, you mentioned the recipe for thriving. Not sure if you want to give away the secret ingredients, but we have a comment there says, I'm interested in the recipe for thriving.
Or for thriving, yeah. Thank you for that. That usually catches the attention, and I did share, three ingredient or two ingredients of it, but really it was just really. So I started off by saying, life is about the ebbs and flows, the downs and the ups, and so it's about setting ourselves up to have more good days than bad days. And so it would start off with, what is that daily routine? And for me, we call it the power hour. What is it that we do in that hour before we start to quote unquote tackle life then? And, as I started to share, it was really about the consistency around prayer and meditation, exercise, if it's even just a little bit, a mindset routine, what we were reading, what we were listening to. For me, it was also about journaling, creating, using my words to create. And that's from a place of me journaling. And so last year, even as I was going through, it was about thinking about my life and what I wanted, and journaling about it, and to see it, manifesting now. So, I get into, a deeper talk about it, because it also involves, mindset. But on the surface, it's really, what is your power hour? What is that hour that sets you up to have the best day ever? Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so if you wake up and you're thinking negative, then, you ever go through the day and you're wondering why everything is going off the rails, versus it's a brand new day. So grateful. Let me set myself up. Let me put myself in that high vibe energy. Let me listen. Let me read something positive that's uplifting, because where my focus goes, my energy is gonna flow. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Andrea. Yeah.
Yes, and commendations in the chat. Thank you for sharing, Ms. Powell, and all the best. We have a question, a few questions. What triggered your examination from your doctor in the first instance?
Mm-hmm.
What triggered your examination from your doctor in the first instance?
So thank you for that. So, one of the things I also share is that we know our bodies, and we know when something is off. Yeah. But really, for me, it was one night I literally felt like electricity shot through my breast. And when I got up, I could feel the lump. And so, in that moment, even before I got there, I was like, yup. But it was that. But I must say, and one of the things I share, especially with women, is that we know our bodies, we know when things are off, we can feel it. But we have this way of self-diagnosing. We have this way of saying, oh, I'm probably just tired, or it's the most popular one I've heard and I've used it, and so it's gas, or for me, the body overheating, and early menopause kind of a thing. And we self-diagnose, and it's until something gets really critical that then we go. So there were two things, Alwyn. I really felt just the changes happening, but then there was that specific feel that was right there.
So you moved away from just, diagnosing this thing to yourself, got up and say, I definitely need to check this out.
Oh, absolutely. And it was scary, because what I felt is almost in that moment was like, okay. And this is the other thing. For so many things, early diagnosis, early detection saves or gives you so much of a better shot at cure. Sometimes we feel things and we get into a space of fear, and denial. And so we don't take that inspired action, that next action immediately. And then, it goes on and on. So, and this is when I speak about inspired action. You feel something, you take action, you go to the doctor. Early helps.
Definitely. Early detection is key. And of course, that is one of the central messages in terms of making that decision to get yourself checked out, to get yourself in front of a medical expert who will be able to tell you what's going on. We have more comments. I really appreciated this prompt to be more intentional of my health. Thank you, Ms. Powell. More comments are coming in. We're inviting you just to take this moment. Ms. Powell is a very active and engaged and busy woman. So she's not going to be with us for long. How many opportunities do you have to talk to someone who has a cancer diagnosis and is thriving in it? So we're asking you to send us your comments and your questions so that we may speak with her. Do you think the experience with your mom pushed you to get checked out? And do you have any suggestions for individuals who may be taking care of their loved ones? I'm glad that somebody, well, Aleathia, you pointed this out because you talked, Miss Powell, about the fact that you cared for your mom for a 7-month period. And so coming out of that, such a life-changing event, you were now sitting across from your doctor with another event, another transition that you were going to be facing. Can you just take us through that transition and what that would have been like coming from one life event to the other?
Yeah, thank you for that, Aleathia. So absolutely, as we were journeying with her, it became very clear, the message that I'm sharing with you now, get your test done, don't sit and self-diagnose, certainly became a central thought in the family. What age were you now, are we at now? What are some of the, let me call them the required tests and exams that are recommended at the various stages in life. One of the things we came to learn is even around colon cancer, it's recommended, it's even fallen lower now, but certainly it was recommended when you get to age 50, you want to be doing that. For the men, are you doing your prostate exam? For women, your self-exam, your breast self-exams and your pap smears and those routine checks. And certainly that experience really brought all of that to the forefront. One of the biggest things I hope that helped with that. One of the biggest things I would say in being a caregiver is sometimes we know that the person is ill, and we want to push and push. And it's important for us to recognize, even as we are in the support, what role we each play in that support mechanism. Yeah. So, who is the person who will do the doctor's trips? Who is the person who will perhaps support with meals? Who is the person who is just going to be the person who is going to sit there and have a chat? And that becomes important because it is a very overwhelming time. There's a lot of information. Who is the person or persons who are going to go accompany you to the doctor? When you're sitting in front of the doctor and the doctor is giving you so much information, you're hearing some. I never forget when we went to the doctor, there were 3 of us in the room, my partner, my sister. And by the time we got home and we're comparing notes, I heard some of it, and then my mind just went off. He heard some stuff and she heard some stuff, and then we put it all together. And so it's always curious for me when I see especially elder persons going by themselves, and I know that a lot of information is being missed. So there's that element. And the other thing I'll say is patience. So one of the things that, as my mom was going through her treatments, obviously her appetite would have changed and that sort of a thing. And I kept pushing her, you gotta eat. And then when I was going through mine, I realized that, but you just can't, and so I was doing some reading where it says, your digestive process takes most of your energy. And so when you're ill and fighting something, it moves, your body automatically moves that energy to support the fight. And so naturally, that will diminish. So I'd say allow the person to, to share with you, to be who they need to be in that moment. And the best thing that you can do is just constantly just give love. Just be there. Sometimes it's just a matter of just being quiet, just being there. so much more I could get into. I think there's a question that came directly to me about, am I suggesting critical illness or a particular policy? I'm just sharing my experience of how these things supported me and how beneficial it was. I know that Aleathia is going to do a presentation with options, and so that expert part of it I will leave to her, because I also know that these things are also dependent on what you're looking for and affordability and that sort of a thing. But what I would say is, as I said, support. You're looking at your environment, you're looking at your people, you're looking at your family, your spirituality or your faith, whatever that looks like. But you also want to look at your financial, and that's a big part of it.
Yes, thank you so much. I jumped over to YouTube just to get a feel of some of the comments here. And so we do have a number of commendations to you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you.
And our viewers, of course, agreeing early detection is the best. Early detection is the key. So we want to thank you so much again, Ms. Powell, for sharing with us tonight. And we just pray the strength of the Lord upon you and your family, that he will cause you indeed to continue to thrive and to use this message to bring hope and strength and inspiration to others. We thank you so very much on behalf of our leaders at Miracle Open Bible Church. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Take care. So we are speaking there with Ms. Tanya Powell. In case you are just joining the presentation, she shared with us her cancer diagnosis and the support in terms of finances and just, how she was able to take that inspired action and move through that life event with support from her financial institution. We're going to move into the next part of our presentation. And I mentioned to you earlier that we have an internal guest. And so, of course, we would have heard Ms. Powell speaking a little bit there and mentioning Mrs. Aleathia Walters-Benbow. Of course, no stranger to us, one of our very own at the Miracle Open Bible Church. Mrs. Benbow, for those who don't know, is a financial advisor with Sagicor Life. And in terms of her expertise for all your financial needs, life insurance, investments, health card, mortgage acquisition fund, critical illness coverage, educational fund, and so much more. So I'm going to move away, get off the floor, and allow Mrs. Benbow to speak with us tonight. Aleathia, it's over to you.
Good night, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. Yes?
Yes, hearing you
perfect. All right, good evening, everyone. And I will try my best to keep it short and spicy, just like Miss Tanya did. Thank you so much, Miss Powell, for sharing your story with us. It is appreciated so much. And I know that persons have walked away with little nuggets, as you would say, and really kind of look within themselves to see. And I hope I can kind of bring it home to assist where that's concerned. All right. Kenisha, am I allowed to share my screen? I have a little PowerPoint. I think I can. Oh. Okay. Let's try again. All right. All right, everyone. You guys are seeing my screen? All right. So we're talking a little bit about critical illness coverage and even some of what Miss Powell mentioned as well about just the different medications and the statistics. I'll go into it a little bit and then kind of bring it home. All right, so you can exceed the limits. Life goes on, right? And Miss Powell is a walking testimony for that, that life goes on. A lot of persons think that critical illness is a death sentence. It doesn't have to be if you are adequately covered. One of the things that Miss Powell mentioned was that unfortunately her critical illness coverage that she had was not enough. She had, which was great, but it was not enough. I remember even at one point, when one of the first times I heard her speak, she was saying when she did the calculation and it was 18 mil, she turned to her advisor and was saying that, why you never tell me to get 18 mil coverage? I would have just get it, even though I never know, and I'm saying a lot of the times we don't know. So it's best to kind of prepare in any event, right? So let's go. So statistics, right? Every single day, there are over 350,000 people of working age who are unable to work due to illness or disability. So I'm going to talk about critical illness, and it's broad. It's not just cancer. It is also paralysis, stroke, etc. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Right? You're 15 times more likely to have to take at least, I cannot see, right? I think it was 15 months off work due to illness than you are to die before age 60, right? And these are some health facts, right? Women between the ages of 20 and 40 have a 1 in 5 chance of contracting a critical illness. So Miss Powell was the 1 in 5, right? A man, however, between the ages of 20 and 40, who is in good health, has a 1 in 4 chance to develop a critical illness before age 65. So the men, it's a little more prominent for the men, right? So I'm gonna go in this quickly, right? So the chances of developing a critical illness for persons aged 35 to 65. So we're kind of bringing it home, right? So for heart attack, for males, it's 1 in 7. Females, 1 in 20. So you can see that clear difference, right? Cancer for men, 1 in 12. Females, 1 in 10. That's a little higher, right? Stroke for men, 1 in 28. Females, 1 in 35. Paraplegia, which is just being paralyzed, either from neck down, waist down, etc. 1 in 35 for men, 1 in 48 for women. And other critical illness or other ailments for men, 1 in 38, 1 in 20. When I meet with some of my clients, they would say to me, Mrs. Benbow, why it seem like certain things are more expensive for men or certain things? And I said to them, because you guys tend to be at a higher risk, unfortunately. It's not our fault. Like the Lord just made it this way. And also based on the fact that us as women, and I can only speak for me, if we're having a headache, like even with Miss Powell, let's use Miss Powell. She felt the electric shock through her breast and was like, something all right. But even though she said that we usually self-diagnose, which is true, she still went to the doctor. A lot of the times, unfortunately, if that is the case with a man, he's like, no, mama, all right, man, I'm just tired. Or Lord, me just did a work hard. And he doesn't go to the doctor, unfortunately. So a lot of the times the men are at higher risk for some of these things, right? One of the reasons why they need to get covered, right? But let's go on, right? In a typical year, 94,000 men and 57,000 women will have a heart attack. Like these are just the statistics. It sounds harsh, but this is real life, right? Of every 100 people who have a heart attack, 75 of them will reach the hospital alive. I like those statistics. I like those odds, but it's like, well, what happened to the other? What happened to the 25? They didn't reach alive, right? Right? Of those people who have suffered illness or disability, 62% of them say they had to either liquidate assets, as Ms. Powell mentioned, use her retirement investments, deplete lifelong savings, or even go without food from time to time in order to afford treatment. Listen to me, y'all. Food is very important. I can only speak for me, but food is important. I wouldn't personally want to be starving myself in order to afford cancer treatments or any kind of treatments, but this is what has to be done if we are not properly or adequately covered, right? Unfortunately, 68% are in debt and are very unhappy with their financial position. Miss Powell is one of the lucky ones where she had certain things in place. However, as she said, it still was not enough and she had to liquidate certain things, right? So going on, I'm gonna go through these quickly because some of these, just disclaimer, some of these are some not very pleasing to the eye. But there's some cancer diagnosis. I'm gonna go through those very quickly. This is cancer of the throat, right? A man between ages 20 and 40 who's in good health has a 1 in 11 chance of developing cancer. Just broadly, 250,000 people every year are diagnosed as having cancer. Of this amount, 179,000 will die as a result of late detection and lack of funds. So we'll bring it right back there again, right? Bladder cancer, breast cancer, I'm going through those, advanced kidney cancer, right? But paraplegia, which is paralysis, there's no doubt that this form of disability will create undue stress on family members, especially if no provisions were made for this class of hazard. This is, again, paralysis. You're not able to walk. You're not able to work. You're not able to do a lot of things. So even Kedisha, I believe, would have mentioned it that Miss Powell spoke about the financial support, not so much even the family support. Well, in this case, we're talking about family and the strain that that is going to cause. But again, if there are certain funds that will take care of it, then it makes life a little easier, right? At the bottom, it says no money plus stress equal crisis. Big, big, big crisis. No, 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 no. Right? One's outlook on life does not have to change, as paraplegia is not a death sentence. Miracles can be created. And of course, we're Miracle Open Bible Church. We would have seen miracles come in and out of that church, right? So miracles can be created. We're not disputing that. But the necessary factors needed for such an accomplishment must be in place. Some of the greatest miracles required action on the part of the ones affected. Right? Survival and recovery. People who survive a critical illness are frequently, I can see it. Let's go back. Right? Or they're frequently faced with a series of financial hurdles that usually set back their physical recovery. A lot of times, individuals pass on or die not because of the fact that the cancer diagnosis was so bad, but because again there were no funds to take care of the treatment, right? 6 months of disability could wipe out 15 years of savings, right? Cost of recovery, rehabilitation, and ongoing therapy, of course, coupled with an inability to return to work, can cripple even a financially well-off individual. Again, if there are not certain things in place, and really and truly, this is life, and I'm gonna be honest. If anybody's in a situation where they've been given a cancer diagnosis or they've been given a critical illness diagnosis, and you have savings, you're going in there. It could be savings for the house that you were trying to buy. It could be your children's school fee. It could be your retirement fund. And could anyone blame you? No. They could not blame you because you're trying to save your life. And it is what it is. You're going to go into your children's school fee and stuff like that. But if you're adequately covered, you won't have to. You won't have to go into the years of savings that you've been doing, right? And there's good news, right? Medical breakthroughs ensure that more people survive such illnesses. Again, Miss Powell is an example of that, but sometimes it's not enough. We have designed critical illness solutions that create an immediate fund to cover the cost of treatment and long-term care needed to facilitate speedy recovery. These plans pay a living benefit upon diagnosis within 72 hours. As Ms. Powell said, you carry the documents to them, they look at everything, they look at your diagnosis, you bring your policy contract to them, and they send the money to your account. That's exactly what happened with her, right? And I'm gonna go through the different ones that we have, and then we wrap up. So I'm focusing on two of them, really two main ones. So the triple protector, first and foremost, this one covers 9 illnesses, as you can see here: cancer, heart attack, stroke, blindness, coma, deafness, loss of speech, paralysis, and major burns. So this triple protector covers all of those, right? As I said here on the side, it says you can qualify up to age 60 if you've not had any previous ailments, as a cancer, stroke, heart attack. Because really and truly, if you had a heart attack before, had cancer, you're not going to be eligible for this policy. or this plan, right? It is, okay, now I'm healthy, I can get covered, right? It's also up to age 60, right? Because of the fact that it is a critical illness coverage. You have other ones that can go past 60, but not this one, right? Maximum coverage is 8 million. Remember what Miss Powell said? Miss Powell said in total, she needed 18 mil for what she needed, right? This one, unfortunately, just does 8. But the, yes? Is that a question? Okay. All right. And the best part about this particular policy, which I love, is that there's a return of premium if there is no claim. So it's looking at it this way. It's in essence having an umbrella. If the rain falls, you have the umbrella to cover yourself. But what if the rain does not fall? You get back all the monies that you would have paid towards critical illness coverage, because it's like, hey, certain amount of years has passed. They're like, but wait, Felicia is paying for this, but she's never claimed. Why is she still paying for this? You are returned all that money that you would have been paying, right? So that within itself is an investment that you weren't thinking about. So which I love, right? The next one now is the Ultra Lifeline that covers you for 30 illnesses. So you see the, yes, Reverend Walters, there's a raised hand.
Just a quick question I want to ask before I lose my trend of thought.
Sure.
On the previous slide, you mentioned that at the previous slide, you mentioned that at age 60, if there is no claim that the funds are your premiums are returned to you. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that the policy timeout at 60?
No, all right. So no, I think you're confusing it. So at age 60, you can qualify. So meaning from now up to age 60, if we say, hey, we need a triple protector plan, we can get it up to age 60. If you're 61, you're not able to get the triple protector. In terms of the return of premium, it's not age 60, it's 70.
So if at age 70 there is no claim,
right,
then the premiums are refunded.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
So it's returned back to you after that time.
Yes.
All right. All right, good. So continuing to the Ultra Lifeline, Andrea, I guess I'll take that one since we're here.
Just piggybacking on Reverend's question. You said the premium are returned. Would it be returned to, suppose you die by that age? Will your estate or your beneficiary get the money?
That's correct. That's correct. So there are beneficiaries that you, whoever it is that you want, whether it's your estate or your children, your spouse, etc., that's returned to them.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Continuing to the other one now. So as I said, this one is 30 illnesses. So you can see the big difference, 9 versus 30. And by the way, disclaimer, the difference in cost for these is above $800 to $1,000 in terms of what they cost. So a lot of the times I will say to my clients, if you can qualify for the one that covers you for 30, do it, right? However, in a financial portfolio, which is what we're creating, right? Out of a financial portfolio, you have different, it's almost like different blocks. You have investments, you have critical illness coverage, you have life insurance, etc., because we're building a portfolio. In the portfolio that says critical illness, I also recommend that you have these both. Why? Somebody might say, but I'm already covered, like why me need this? Based on the critical illness that are covered in the Ultra Lifeline, say for example, you have, let's say a bit bacterial meningitis, let's use that one, right? But bacterial meningitis, as you can see, is not covered in the triple protector at all. So if you have both of them, God forbid you have bacterial meningitis, you claim here on the Ultra Lifeline, you get your millions and you walk away, you take care of what you need to take care of. Say, God forbid, a year or two later, you now have a stroke, but you have the triple protector, so you claim over on the triple protector. So you're covered in both aspects versus if you only had one, you can't claim, if you understand what I mean. I hope I'm being clear. So if you only had the Ultra Lifeline, you could claim for the bacterial meningitis, right? But then if you have a stroke, there's nothing else to claim, because from once you claim, the policy is null and void, right? So you can see, I'm not going to go into all of them, but you can see that it's 30 of them. I'm going to go to the next slide shortly. So Alzheimer's disease, deafness, heart attack, kidney failure, loss of speech, major burns, bacterial meningitis, benign brain tumor, cancer, coma, major organ transplant. That one is very important. These are some of the ones that the Lifeline covers. Continuing multiple sclerosis, occupational HIV, Parkinson's disease, severe Crohn's disease, stroke, traumatic brain injury. So you're covered for all of those with the Ultra Lifeline, right? The benefits of the Ultra Lifeline, again, you can qualify up to age 60 if you've not had previous ailments, right? The cancer, the stroke, etc., right? Maximum coverage amount is limitless. We actually tweak that a little bit. The max you can now get is actually 35 mil. As long as you can afford that. If you want 35 mil, you can get it, right? You can put accessible investments on this, which is one of the other things that I love. Investments that are gaining interest for you. It's like, okay, well, I have it here growing. I want to touch it this month, I can. If I want to touch it 2 months, I can. If I want to touch it every month, I can, because it's there gaining interest for you, right? It can also aid you with your retirement, because over a period of time, the little money that you're contributing towards the critical illness coverage, they take a little bit of that and they invest it on your behalf. So it's called the interest fund. So it accumulates over time, and there are millions for you to get, just like with life insurance. And a lot of persons don't know, because they think that life insurance is just dead left. And I'm like, no, there's some money accumulating for you, separate from your investment. There's money accumulating for you that grows over a period of time, right? I did a proposal for a colleague of mine recently, and when I did it up for him, he's 25 years old. He said, Aleathia, I want 20 million life insurance. So don't confuse the two. We're talking about life insurance for a second. He says, I want 20 mil. When I did up the proposal for him, when I looked at the interest fund when he would reach retirement age, it was 129 million. And I said to him, that's just your money. You don't have to wait until you die to access your money. Like, it's here, just sitting here. So that can help you with your retirement, because it's the same thing with the Lifeline, right? Ultra Lifeline. And we're coming down to it. So this kind of solidifies what Miss Powell was talking about with the expenses. In total, she said she needed 2 particular drugs. One was 300 and something thousand per one. The other one was 600 and something thousand per one. And she needed 8 dosages for both, right? She didn't talk about the surgery that she had to do and all those things. I kind of broke it down for you. So diagnosis, a lot of the times you have to do all the tests to find out the ultrasound, the blood work, etc., right? It can rack up a pretty penny, $1 million. Surgery, if needed, approximately $2 million. And this is Jamaica. Chemotherapy, 2.4 million. Radiation, 3.8 million. And consultation fee, about 2.5 million, right? Totaling 11.8 mil. So this is actually less than what Miss Powell needed, right? So really and truly, for me, it's a rule of thumb, just for me personally, is that when I'm speaking with somebody about critical illness coverage, we'll weigh all the pros and the cons, we'll look at the expenses and see what we can afford. But rule of thumb, I will say it makes no sense for you to get less than 10 million worth of coverage, because I know the cost and it's right here in front of you. I said no less than 10. If we can't afford 10, then we go less. But over a period of time, I go back and I review with my clients and I say, hey, you need to top this up, right? We can start small, but let's top it up just in case, right? So 11.8 mil, right? Continue with the expenses. So total cost, 11.8 mil. Critical illness coverage, which is approximately costing about $5,000. And of course, it's age-based, right? The younger you are, the cheaper it is. The older you are, it's a little more expensive. But again, doing a financial review with me We put everything on the table, right? To say, okay, this is what we can afford. This is what my light bill is. This is what my water is. This is what I pay for the kids. This is what I can afford. And we say, okay, let's make it work, right? And the best part about this is that the consultation with me is absolutely free, right? So let's meet and kind of see which coverage is the best one for you, because everybody's different. I've had clients that say to me, Aleathia, my mother have cancer, my grandmother had cancer, my two auntie them. I know exactly where I'm going, right? I didn't get to put it in, but there's also another critical illness coverage that we have called the Total Woman that focuses specifically on women. So even inside two of the breast, which is just the lump, this is not cancerous, just the lump, it actually covers for that and any kind of surgery that's needed to cover for that. Among other things, pregnancy complications like ectopic pregnancy, etc. Those are also covered in the Total Woman, along with covering you for 15 major illnesses, mostly for women, right? So that's pretty much it. So thank you. And that's my information there. If anybody wants to take a picture or reach out to Kedisha or Brand, that's my contact information. But let me know if you have any answers, any questions, so I can provide some answers. I hope I kept it short and spicy.
Okay, thank you so much, Aleathia. We do have some questions. We have a few in the chat, and I'm seeing, is this 2 raised hands?
Her sister, which is a deacon wife, right? And how did
Elder Brooks, you have your hand raised. That's a raised hand, sir. Yes?
I think so. I'm not hearing anything.
You may go ahead and unmute, Elder, so that we could have your question, or if you're having any difficulties, please use the chat feature. All right, so
okay, I'm on now. All right, I'm on now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very insightful and mature presentation, Aleathia. Thou hast persuaded me.
You're not just saying that because you're my godfather. You're not just saying that.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that. In fact, I never even told them because I didn't want to appear so that I'm, speaking on your behalf. All right, but my question is, if I live abroad, can I be insured in Jamaica?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
No problem with any issues over there.
Mm-hmm. No. No, that's fine, because really you have residency here, you have your TRN, etc. I do have some clients that don't live here, but they used to live here, and they still have chosen to take those coverage here. Yeah.
But can I live abroad and open it here if I never had it before?
Yes. Yeah, as I said, really and truly, what they want is a TRN. That's really what warrants it. Not even a Jamaican ID, just a TRN.
TRN, okay. Which is common to Jamaica, not a social security number, but a Jamaican TRN.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Aleathia.
You're welcome.
All right. So we're continuing with the questions, comments. We have a raised hand from Chin. Chin, is that?
So where does this leave us?
It's me.
Okay, yes, that's Anthony Vern. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not, this is not a plug to say to anyone, you should purchase this policy or consider purchasing it. But I do think you should. I don't know how many of us remember the ad on television where it was an NCB ad where this bald-headed lady sat down in front of her dresser, and she took off her wig, and then her husband and son came over and hugged her. I don't know if how many of us remember that ad. It was pitching a cancer policy as well. Now that lady was my friend Andrea, and she did in fact was diagnosed with breast cancer. So it wasn't a stunt or anything. They didn't shape her head to make her look bald. She actually had breast cancer. She was my friend, or still is my friend. Andrea bought that. She had an agent who was bothering her and harassing her to buy this policy and everything. And she's like, you know what? I need to get this man off of my case. So she bought the policy in January of 2000, either December of 2015 or January of 2016. But the policies, and I'm assuming it's the same with the policies from Sagicor Aleathia, where after 6 months, then you are basically covered by the policy and you can claim. So if you have paid 6 months of premium, well, that was for her policy. 6 months of premium.
Some of them are different. Some are 3 months and some are 6 months.
Okay, her policy was 6 months. In June of 2016, she felt a lump one Saturday morning when she was in bed. And the Monday she went to the doctor. And after tests and tests, she was diagnosed with breast cancer by somewhere near the end of June of that year. Now, that policy matured in June, the same month she felt the lump. And she was fully covered. I think it was about $5 million at the time, fully covered, all after paying just 6 months. And it so happened that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So, I too was being, not say harassed, but, pursued by someone at Guardian Life. And I remember saying to my friend, she was my friend, she still is my friend. She was the wife of a co-worker of mine. And I said to her, Audrey, listen to me now. I have both about 4 policies already between Sagicor and Guardian Life. I can pay no more policy and then can put food on my table. I remember saying that to her. I can be paying insurance policy and then can buy bread. Little did I know that about 5 years later, I too would have been diagnosed with breast cancer. And at this point, I had no critical illness policy to fall back on, and so, yes, not only the stress of the diagnosis, but the stress of how am I going to pay for this came to mind. So I'm just saying all of this to say, for those who are listening and, speak to your relatives to consider purchasing this policy or whichever one that you can qualify for, because we just don't know when. It could be 6 months, it could be 6 years, and you are diagnosed and you have no money to pay for your treatment. And being able to pay for your treatment take a load off, it takes the stress off. Yes, having friends and family who are there for you. In some cases, persons may not have friends and family who can assist with the treatment and the surgeries and all of what you have to go through. And yes, the treatments, they're expensive. Mine was, I think, $75 or $79 every 3 weeks. 79,000, sorry, every 3 weeks. So it's not money you can just go and pick up for most persons just like that to pay for whatever treatment you have to do. And that's just chemo. We're not talking about the surgeries and other things that preceded. So I'm just putting it out there to say, seriously, don't look at this as another pitch. Seriously consider, if, work out with your financial advisor, Mrs. Aleathia Walters-Benbow, what it is that you can afford, and do something. We have to take action. That's my thing. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you, Kadisha.
Thank you so much, Auntie Laverne. And interestingly, a few days ago, as the tropical storm / hurricane Elsa was approaching, I mentioned in a conversation that preparation is not in the Jamaican psyche. Preparation is just not in the psyche as a people. But and it moves into so many other dimensions of our lives. But we are hoping tonight that from this presentation, the need to be prepared, even financially, for whatever health events may arise, we're hoping that that message is certainly one that you take from tonight. Rev, do you have another question for our presenter?
Yes, I do have a question for the newly minted deaconess. The policy seemed to close out at 70. What happens after 70? Because at 70 you are refunding the premium to the policy holder, which tantamount to putting back the policy holder at risk. May I ask of you to take this to your bosses, that they need to give consideration, because you have covered me up to 70. And at 70, because I have not been diagnosed, I've not utilized the policy. At 70, at 70, the likelihood becomes greater at 70, but at 70 you are giving me back my premium and say you're on your own.
No, man. So you have the option. You have the option whether or not you want to continue paying it. But really and truly, they're saying, hey, you've done your time. You realize that you haven't claimed anything. So maybe this isn't in the cards for you. And a lot of persons will take that and say, yeah, man, not true, man. I'm not get sick, more about my money. But you have the option to take your money, or you say, no, let me still be covered in any event, right? So you have the options.
Probably what they, and I'm glad for that option. But possibly at 70 is a retiree.
Right.
And the fact that the insurance company would be willing to return the premium, couldn't they keep the policy enforced?
Right.
And whatever premium you'd have refunded, it continues, it pays the premium. It pays the premium, the policy rather.
Right.
Or the premium more so. Because I know there are policies where once it covers a certain, once you maintain for a period of time, there's a cutoff point and it pays itself for the rest, for the life, for the rest of the life of the policy.
That's correct.
They probably need to look at that.
No, that's right. So it goes mature. It matures at 70. I think it matures at 70. You have the option to keep it if you want.
Yes.
Right? If you want to take your money, you can. If you want to keep it, it keeps going. And really and truly, you don't pay any more money. After 25 years, you don't pay any more money.
Okay.
So it just keeps going. And it's there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rev. I've hopped over to our YouTube channel just to key in again on some of the comments there. So we are having our viewers registering their gratitude for the presentation. Thanks for the information on our health. Thanks, Mrs. Aleathia-Benbow, for sharing this insurance coverage with us. Very informative session. And we're back in the chat and the participants window to see the hands that are raised. We are going to close off in a few minutes, but we are still giving you the opportunity to make your comments, ask your questions, and then of course you can take it over into a complimentary session with Mrs. Benbow. So I am going to just jump in the chat a little bit. So we answered the question, can you choose to continue the policy after age 70? And you are saying, yes, Aleathia, that is something, that's an option that you can consider.
Correct.
Another question says, all right, what about the plan for the over 60? And there is another question about how often is that $5,000 paid for critical illness? Before you get into anything else, Aleathia, just for those who may not be so very familiar with, you know, this insurance language, can you just quickly, in just a bite-sized response, can you just give us a description, a definition for some other terms? Policy, premium, and claim. Those three words, you know, we use when we're talking about insurance coverage and so on. But for those who may be new to that language, what do we mean when we say a policy? What do we mean when we say a claim? And what do we mean when we say premium?
All right, perfect. Thank you for that question. All right, so policy, premium, claim, right? So the policy is the plan that you have. So policy / plan, same thing, right? So you can have a life insurance policy, you can have a critical illness policy, you can have an investment policy, retirement policy, etc. So it's just the term for it, right? So that's what policy is. Policy is basically the plan that you have, right? The premium is the monthly figure that you pay for the policy, right? So premium is cost,
okay,
right? And then claim is the monies that you are given when you are, God forbid, diagnosed with a critical illness. So, for example, the premium that you're paying, the $5,000 that you're paying, can cover you for, say, 5 million, 10 million, etc., based on your age and all of those things, right? So for me, for example, I would have done up one real quick for myself. 5 million coverage for me at my age is costing, I think, a little less than $5,000, right? And that's 5 million, right? So then 10 million would probably around $10,000, right? So when you claim, what Sagicor is paying out is $10 million or $5 million, whatever it is that you are covered for by paying your premium.
Okay, so there we have it. The policy is the plan. The premium is the monthly payment for the plan, and the claim is that cash out per se, that return of funds if you do not suffer from the illness. All right.
Yes,
okay, so just quickly.
Hold on one second, Kedisha. Also, just for clarity, over a period of time, when you reach like age 70, if you've not claimed, meaning if you don't have you don't have cancer, you haven't gotten a stroke, heart attack, etc., right? You have that premium or that money that you would have contributed over a period of time, you get that back. But if it's a case where you are diagnosed, like Miss Tanya, diagnosed with a critical illness coverage, whatever you are covered for, they're paying that out. But that is the money that you get, the 10 million, the 8 million, etc. That's what's paid when you claim.
Okay, so the insurance company now says you have been paying your premiums and we've made preparation for you. Here is the money to get the assistance that you need for this particular illness. All right, great. Rev, another comment for the presenter?
Yes, sorry to I just put on my investor's hat, you see?
Yes, sir.
And I've been listening to what Aleathia has been saying. Where my coverage is for $10 million for argument's sake. What does it mean that whatever ailment or illness that arise, once I submit that to the diagnosis to Sagicor, the entire 10 million will be sent to my account, whether or not the cost is 10 million.
Right.
So if the cost is 3 million, for argument's sake, that will respond to my medical treatment. Sagicor is going to send me the 10 million because that's what I'm covered for.
That's correct.
So I could have $7 million to plow back into some other investment.
Correct. And that is why you have relationships with your financial advisors. I tell my clients, I'm like, I'm with you for every step of the way. I'm going to be in your life for a while. So in this situation where the scenario is, hey, I'm covered for 10 million, but my critical illness treatment is causing me 3, really and truly, Sagicor is paying out the 10 because that's what you're covered for. So you meet with me as a financial advisor and say, okay, let's take care of the treatment with the 3 million. The 7 million can be used to invest and to be used for other things and keep investment going, so at least there's some residual income coming in, or whatever it is that the client will want to do.
Okay. We need to talk. I just note your number.
No problem. Kedisha?
Yes, dear.
I wanted to, you said something about the plan for the over 60. I never got to answer that question.
Yes, go ahead. Please go ahead.
All right. So really and truly, again, I can't stress it enough. Insurance is age-based and health-based. And that is why I will stress to a lot of my clients, get things out of the way from now. We're young, we're frivolous, we're energetic, get it out of the way. Because there is a cutoff point when it comes on to critical illness, not life insurance. Because life insurance, you can actually go up to as long as you can, and then also you have ones that cover you for accident, etc. Cover you up to, you can get it up to age 75, right? But in terms of critical illness, because again, the older you are, the higher the risk. Insurance companies on a whole, this is not just Sagicor, this is Guiding, etc. will do a cutoff point to say no, right? At age 60, you would have had enough time, right? And you again are at higher risk. So they're like, we can't take on the risk, like we're sorry, right? Because really and truly, they have to still a business at the end of the day, and as I said, higher risk. So by age 60, them say no, cut off point. So again, I can't stress it. Get covered from before. So at least if it's a case where you, God forbid, are diagnosed with a critical illness at age 61, 65, etc., you would have already had the coverage. Yep.
So the short response then, Aleathia, is it's gonna be difficult to have a policy at 60.
Right, exactly, right? To take it out, because I mean the cost is there, as in whatever the budget is, it can work. I have clients who then say, hey, this is the budget, and when I look at that age, we can only get $1 million worth of coverage, for example, but it's still coverage. But by the time you reach 60, even I know persons who are older want critical illness coverage, and I'm like, you're past the age, like there's so much and no more that I can do, you know. They're like, you've been in this on this earth 60 years now, like what?
Understood. All right, so we have just about 5 minutes left, and in the 5 minutes, we're going to take all the raised hands and the comments in the chat. And so we're going to go with Yannick, Elder Brooks, Sister Joan Antonio in that order. Please go ahead, Yannick.
Hi, good night, everyone. Thanks again for your presentation, Aleathia. So I wanted to find out, you mentioned the $5,000 that it costs. What is that? Is that $5,000 a month? Is that $5,000 for the year? That's one question. And another question I want to ask is, if it is that you need to make a claim and you cannot find your policy contract, what does that mean for you? So those two questions from me.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Yannick, for those questions. All right, so you wanted to know, I think you had said it in the chat as well. I wasn't sure what you meant. So in terms of if that 5,000 is paid monthly, yearly, etc., right? Again, all depends on the amount of coverage that's needed. So as I said, for me, I would have just glimpsed one for myself recently. And I'm like, all right, how much could 5,000 a month to get me? And in total, it was about 5 million for myself, right? Persons have the option to pay 5,000 per month, which is what, 60,000 for the year, etc. Right? It all depends on the coverage. If you want 500,000 worth of coverage and you're really young, then maybe it might work out to be 5,000 for the year. But what I was speaking about in my proposal or in my PowerPoint presentation was 5,000 per month, right? And that's just a ballpark figure. Again, age-based, health-based, and budget is what's important. And remind me of the second question again, Yanni. Or with the policy contract, if you can't find it.
if I want to make a claim and I can't find the policy contract, what happens then?
All right, so we have something called a lost document form. So you're just basically saying to them, hey, I used to have this, but I can't find it. So you just do up a lost document form, and that's basically replacing the contract. They're also gonna go on the system and reprint a contract for you. So even if you need to claim and you can't find it, you can still get your claim. They're not gonna hold it for that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so moving.
Okay.
Elder Brooks and then Sister Antonia. Go ahead, Elder.
Okay, thank you, Miracles Consummate Host Edition. Aleathia, what if by reason of strength I'm living beyond my 70. Does Sagicor have any kind of attraction to keep my money, or are they saying come take your money and go on you all?
Are we talking on the aspect of critical illness coverage or in general?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Critical illness.
Okay, so in terms of critical, 70 is what? 70, right? Right, so you've lived among that. So yes, so they're going to say, okay, as I said, you have up to a point where you say, hey, I want to keep this. They're really not going to force you until they say you have to come take your money. If you say, hey, I want to be covered, I think Daddy would have asked a similar question. I want to still be covered. You have that option. But again, because it's a period of time and it's just weighing the pros and the cons, they're like, hey, you've been paying for this. So for example, it's a 20-year-old. He's had it from his 20. He's now 70. It's like, you've paid this for 50 years and you've not claimed one bit. Like, your health is fine. So here you go. You can get back your money. You've basically done your due diligence. But again, the option is, nah, I can't keep it because I want to know, say, if anything happens, I'm going to pay it out. It's going to be paid out.
No, Aleathia, what I'm asking though is I don't want to keep it in the critical illness policy. I'm asking if they have any attraction for, for funds like those, some other investment, because it might be 5, whatever million it is.
Got you.
I want to invest it. Okay.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah. So that can be done. Again, conversation with your advisor. So in your situation, as you say, hey, I'm getting back the money now. I don't want to keep it in this critical illness coverage. I want to get the money. Say it's 5 million, for example. You then speak to your advisor and we decide exactly how to do it. We can do lump sum investments where it's like, hey, I've gotten this lump sum. I don't want to pay something monthly. I just want a lump sum and I put it down for it to gain interest. So you do have investment policies that are like that. Or if you say, you know what, I want some help with my retirement. So let's put this money into an annuity and have it generate money coming back to me month after month. That's also an option. But it's just really and truly what the client prefers and what is the advice of the advisor.
All right, Aleathia, thanks much.
You're welcome.
All right, great. So flexibility there in what you can do with your money. We have reached the 9:30 mark and we should be closing off. However, I do see that we have some questions. The discussion has been robust and I'm sure that you would want to take the opportunity to book a session with Mrs. Benbow. But quickly, Aleathia, we've had Sister Antonia's hand up, and I've hopped over to YouTube, giving our YouTubers a chance to make a comment, ask a question. I have policies already, Aleathia. Can I review them? Can I change something on my policy? This comment here on YouTube seems geared to in that direction. I have policies. Could they be reviewed? Can I sit with you and review my policy?
Okay, yes, most definitely. A financial review or consultation with me is easy to book. Just reach out to me and we can work that out. What I will do is sit down, look at, it's basically a full analysis to look at all the policies that you would have had before and say, okay, all right, this made sense. This is why, because really and truly, unfortunately, sometimes some advisors are really, really pushy, as Auntie Laverne said, hey, I was just bothered. A lot of the times, clients will not remember what they have, right? So it's my job now to do the review with you to say, hey, these are the policies that you have. This is what you're covered for. This is what makes sense. This is what you can do with this. And then see if you need anything else or if everything that you have is good in terms of building the financial portfolio. So yeah, so just reach out to me and we can get that done.
Wonderful. All right, and then we'll just take Sister Antonio's question quickly. Sister Antonia, are you still with us?
I'm still here. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for this presentation. What I want to find out, let's say someone is covered for 10 million. Unfortunately, they became critically ill and the 10 million has been exhausted. Given the fact that they were diagnosed once, is there any chance when this person gets better, would they be qualified to open another critical illness policy? Is that something out there?
Okay, all right. No, because they would have really done the analysis. I would have to really check on it if it's a case where it's been a substantial amount of years, meaning 20 years has gone by, for example, that from when this person was diagnosed. But really and truly, it is, hey, you used to have it. It's literally, even for example, for the triple protector, there's literally 4 questions that they ask you. Just 4. They don't ask you for medical. Just 4 questions. They say, oh, have you been HIV positive? Do you have an abnormal pap smear? Have you had a heart attack or a stroke? Or have you had cancer? And they say, if you answer yes to any of these, you don't qualify. So that's the standard right now. But I really would have to, it's a peculiar question, and I really would have to check as to the extent of the years that have gone by. But rule of thumb is, you've been diagnosed with cancer, you've claimed, you're now deemed as a living benefit. And that actually is on the, how do I put it? There's a system that we have that I can put in anybody's name and I can see all the policies that you have. And if you've claimed on something, when I look on your policy, it actually says living benefit. So I would automatically know that you are a cancer survivor or a stroke survivor, etc. So to get another critical illness coverage after that, it's not likely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we are going to wrap things up here, but quickly, Aleathia, if you could just maybe start to answer these 2 questions, and then I'm going to advise the persons who have asked just to make contact with Mrs. Benbow. Quickly, I want to up my premium. Will you be able to do that as an advisor? And then policies for persons who already had critical illnesses. And then I'm going to ask Rev to just come forward with any closing remarks and to wrap our session.
Okay. All right, perfect. I'm glad you did that, Kenisha, because I was just about to try and type really quick to Yolando. All right, so if you want to up your premium, meaning increase your premium, right? Yes, that can be done because, again, that's just a part of the review. So we start off 1 year and say, hey, 1 year we're paying 5,000 for 5 million, but let's do 5,500 for 7 million, for example. So that can be done. Yes, you can speak to me. If it's a case where you are more comfortable with me and me assisting you, that can be done. We also have change of agent forms. If it's a case you say, no, I don't know anything about my advisor, I can't tell last I hear from her, I don't know nothing. Aleathia, can you monitor my policies for me? Yes, I can do that as well. In terms of pension plan, I also do that. So if you want to take out a pension plan, you can speak to me as well. We kind of see. And
policies for those who, yes, policies for those who already had a critical illness.
Oh, I think Auntie Joan would have asked something like that.
Yes.
For policies for persons who would have already had a critical illness.
Yes, she did.
Okay,
right. Yeah.
So if we have not thoroughly addressed your question, we have the contact details for Mrs. Benbow right here on screen. Please do go ahead and speak with her. She is an excellent advisor, so you will have her expertise. All right, Rev, any closing remarks from you?
Yes, I just want to, well, before I make the closing remarks, I think most persons tend to see insurance companies as only coverage, for coverage. Yeah, for coverage when you die, coverage when you get ill. But I want to point out to you, and I think a lot of persons are not quite aware that, and it's not a plug for Sagicor or any other insurance company, any particular insurance company, but to point out to us that insurance companies offer one of the better interest rate on your investment. Years ago, I found out that even up to $5,000, I don't know, I think it has reduced a little bit now, up to $5,000 with Sagicor, and I say that about Sagicor because that's what I'm aware of. They were offering up to 5.5% on even 5,000 Jamaican dollars. With the advent of COVID and the decline in the economy, I think it has fallen to about 4 point something. When you go to the commercial banks, your savings account, they're offering you, I think, 0.05% or 0.5%.
0.3.
I know you're not getting 1%. It's at 3% now, Aleathia.
Yes, and NCB last time I checked was 0.3%.
0.3%. 0.3%.
That increased.
Sagicor that even up to $1,000, I think up to a minimum of $1,000, minimum $5,000, they're offering you about 4%. So some of the money that, and at the same time, there's a little coverage. There's a little coverage with your money. So sometimes we need to rethink how we hold our money, because it don't make sense you have the money sitting in a savings account and the bank using it to lend other people at 6, 7, 8% and only offering a 0.03%, where you could take that money to Sagicor, to Guardian Life, or wherever, and earn 3 or 4%. So we have to rethink how we invest. Let me, and that's just a little nugget I want to leave with you. Well, let me thank Miss Powell. That's Miss Powell.
Miss Powell, yes.
Miss Powell for her presentation, and thank her for her willingness to come and to share her private personal experience with us, and the candid way in which she did so. Thank Aleathia for sharing on insurance. I deliberately twin both of them, and for us to understand the benefits that insurance can offer us. And insurance, in the absence of the raw cash that we have, so it can help us to stay alive. And I put it as drastic as that it can help us to stay alive. So I deliberately twin both of them. As Kadisha mentioned at the beginning, that the theme that that will drive the process for this month is a healthy lifestyle, and even our messages on Sunday mornings for this month, and the Bible study for this month will focus on that theme. The Bible says that our body is a temple of the living God. And it is within this body that houses the soul and houses the spirit. If we don't take care of this body is going to decay, it is going to die. Once it dies, then there is no spirit and no body, spirit and no soul that can be functioning here on this earth. So purpose, hopefully, purpose would have expired. And you go home to your maker. But the Bible encourages us that we must take care of the body. And this is one of the reasons why we look at a healthy lifestyle. One of the presenters for this month will talk to us about even nutrition. One will talk to us about physiotherapy, physical exercise, and the function of the physiotherapy, because sometimes we're feeling some pains and all of that, and we don't understand that possibly what we need is not to go to our general practitioner, but we need a therapist rather, who's going to apply those methodology to help us to better able to function and to get back on our feet. So I thank you all, brothers and sisters, for staying the course with us. I thought we would have been finished by 8:39, but I see we are about 9:30 to 10 now. But it was a very interesting session we had, and I look forward next week to what we will have also. May I invite us just to bow our heads as we commit everything to the Lord and to thank him for this evening. Lord, we thank you. We thank you, Lord, for the time we spent on this platform, the time we spent interacting, Lord, and to share and sharing. We thank you for the persons who came to share their experience, and the person, rather, Ms. Powell, who came to share her experience. And Lord, we thank you for your mercies towards her and your grace that God has sustained her. Lord God, has extended her life on this earth. And Father, I pray, God, even for her soul, that God, if she has not come into relationship with you, that God, she'll recognize that, God, you have extended mercy to her, God. I pray, Father, that she will come to surrender her life completely and totally to you, Almighty God, even as she continued to tell her story of favor and grace, but God, that she will come into relationship with you. I pray, God, that all that we have heard, all that we have understood, all that we have learned this evening, that God, it will not go through one ear and pass through the other, but God, that we will be wise. Lord God, act as children of wisdom and act on the information, Lord God, that you have provided for us. I commit, Lord, your children into your hands, Lord, and I pray that the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, will rest and remain and abide with us all, now and forevermore. Amen. Amen. God bless you. Have yourself a wonderful night, and I see you in church on Sunday at 9. Remember, you have to register, and remember, we are now able to accommodate far more persons. We can accommodate about 120 persons. So you need to call the church office and log your attendance. Blessings.
Blessings. Okay. Night. Night, everybody.
Good night, all.